Hi, and thanks for joining us. My name is Shawn Reilly. I am the town moderator, and this show is our annual review that we tape before the annual town meeting, which this year will be held on Monday, April 1st. Starts promptly at 7 o'clock at the Abington High School Gymnasium, the Abington High School Auditorium. We do need at least 150 registered voters to be in attendance in order to start the meeting, so we ask all of you out there to arrive 15 to 20 minutes early, find a parking space, check in the lobby with the town clerk's office, and then find a seat in the auditorium, and we'll get that meeting started just as soon as we can. We have 29 articles to discuss this year, including obviously the most important one is the approval of the annual operating budget for the next fiscal year. And so with me today is our town manager, Scott Lambiase. Welcome aboard, Scott.
Thank you.
Scott and I are going to try to run through the warrant, which is available for you to review on the town website, abingtonma.gov. You'll see a button where it has a town meeting button, and if you open that up, there is a lot of information in there. There's the entire warrant with some exhibits. There's the budget. There is some planning board information for some of the articles. And so if you want to take some time to read it over and familiarize yourself, I think it'll be a much more fluent town meeting for all of us. So we're going to go over these and kind of give you a high-level summary of each one so everyone who's viewing this has a working knowledge, and we hope that you'll share this or advise your friends to take a look at this summary video, and we will be ready for April 1st. So Scott, before we start on the individual articles, I know you're going to give a summary at town meeting about kind of where we are, where we're heading. What do you want to how do you want to set up this town meeting? What's the status of the town, and especially its financial status?
Well, I'd obviously like to start off by thanking all the hard work of our finance committee, because it was a very, very difficult year. It was a very difficult year financially. We asked the department heads to start off with a level service budget, which typically we would do in expectations of a difficult year. There were a lot of needs that were identified by our departments and needs that we were unable to fulfill. We did leave them all with what they need to continue to provide the service as we have, level service, but it was very difficult. State aid did not come in where we had hoped for and expected. Our expenses such as health insurance costs and liability insurance costs, fuel costs, our costs for waste disposal and hauling, they've all gone up significantly, and as everybody has experienced.
Yeah, just families do.
Yeah.
So don't businesses.
Yeah. So it's been very difficult, but we did, and we will present, as always, a balanced budget. We did use some one-time revenues that we were lucky to have this year that to help balance that and offset some costs with our insurance. We did pay for some items for school department and through free cash, which we would normally have as part of operating. But we did this to make sure that we can get through and still provide the level of service that we have been providing and that we need to provide.
Great. So big picture is no obvious cuts to services that the townspeople expect and enjoy. Unfortunately, not a lot of increase in services, but we have kind of chipped away at some of the town's needs where possible.
Yes.
And I've been kind of, obviously, as moderator, been following along the development of the budget, and I have to say, impressed with the financial director, Andrew Nokon, in your office and the finance committee, how efficiently you use the town's available funds. There are some items in the warrant here that you're just paying outright from tax revenue. Some of them you're paying outright by borrowing. So you're paying things over time because they're going to be capital items that we're going to own over time. So you're kind of getting as much bang for every buck, and as a taxpayer, I appreciate that. So let's get right on it. Sure. The first couple of articles are always kind of standard articles at our town meeting. The first one being the payment of outstanding snow and ice costs. Every year, this is the only line item in a town municipal budget that you're allowed to overspend, because it's one of those that it's almost impossible to predict. Right. So you can tell us what we're doing here.
Well, we do allocate every year $100,000 for this, and as you say, we typically go well beyond that. Wasn't a bad year this year, though, so we do need an additional $245,000 that will come from free cash, and just for anybody out there who's not aware, free cash is generated by a couple of things, but one of them being excess revenues from previous year, beyond what we had predicted, and not spending everything that was budgeted. So we're careful as we go through our budgets and what we spend, and whatever's left over from what we've budgeted will roll over the next year into free cash.
So like an unexpected revenue might be someone who perhaps was delinquent in their taxes for a number of years, all of a sudden was able to pay them up to date. So that was unanticipated revenue, but to our benefit. And like you said, if we can cut costs anywhere, again, like a household budget, there's going to be money hopefully left over at the end of the year. A little extra for Christmas. In this case, it's called free cash, and we can try to use it to pay for some of the things we need.
Exactly.
So, and that free cash number has to be reviewed and certified by the Department of Revenue.
Correct.
And just for the viewers at home, you'll notice in the warrant there are a couple Finance Committee recommendations where they said we move to approve this article and to use free cash to pay for this article, subject on the condition that free cash is certified. Because at the time we printed this, the Department of Revenue had not yet certified the free cash. We can both tell you today, we're now taping this the week before town meeting, free cash is certified. It's sufficient to pay for the articles, all the articles that are listed in the warrant, as we expected, but we're not allowed to say that until the Department of Revenue tells us it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes, again, it was a very difficult budget season. We endeavor to start earlier every year. The Finance Committee, again, they work tirelessly to get this done. But that is one of the big impediments, is waiting for things to come, whether it's a governor's budget or certified free cash. And they're two extremely important numbers to us in putting this together.
So that will just be the typical majority vote to authorize the payment of those snow and ice expenses. Then this Article 2 is a payment of prior year's bills. Every year there's some sort of bill that comes into the town hall after the June 30th end of year deadline. Towns and cities work on fiscal years, which start on July 1st and end on June 30th. So the budget that we'll be reviewing this year will be the budget starting for July 1st of 2024 moving forward. This Article 2 is payment for bills from last year that came in late to the town, but still bills that we need to pay. But procedurally, to do that, we need a vote of town meeting, and it has to be at least 4/5 approval. It's typically unanimous approval because it's usually not a large amount. So this is going to be $15,472 total?
Correct. There was actually an outstanding bill with the fire department from Moderator. There was an outstanding bill for some work that was done at Griffin's Dairy, and then there's 196 that came from the water department.
Right. In fact, you'll see on the warrant that's printed, the article talks about approving $15,472. The Finance Committee recommends $15,276. And that difference is that small bill from the water department, which we hadn't locked in yet at the time of printing. You'll hear the Finance Committee recommend paying all those outstanding bills, as we're required to do, for the total of the $15,472. Article 3 is the payment of sick leave buyback whenever a town employee retires. Like in a lot of corporations, they're entitled to be paid for the sick leave days that they didn't utilize. And this addresses a retiring member of the water department, right?
Correct. And again, it's a contractual obligation that we have with that union.
So Abington will be paying $22,500, and because it's a water department employee, it's actually shared by Abington and Rockland, so Rockland will be taking a similar vote. Article 4 is a police station camera system for $70,000. What's that all about?
So the police department, they require closed circuit surveillance. They use it obviously within the building in interrogation rooms. This is not just your typical camera, but it also comes with backup and software, and it's very specific. This creates evidence that must be used in court. The system that's there was in failure. The courts were insisting that this has to be fixed, and so we have to get it done.
And again, this is going to be paid for from free cash, so that's a bonus. I don't want to say it's a bonus, but it's nice to have that available money to write this in here. So that would have been Article 4. Article 5 is the main article that we look for every year, the approval of next year's operating budget. The budget will be a total of $67,457,877. And then when you add three other articles that are later on in some smaller articles for about 16 or 17,000, the total amount that we're spending is the number that's currently printed in the warrant, $67,482,034. To the penny. That's how they've got to do it. They have to justify every single penny. We won't go over in detail everything in the budget, but anything you want to say in kind of a cursory review?
No, like I said earlier, it was a difficult year. It took us quite a while to get here, and again, it was a lot of tough decisions that had to be made, not only by town hall, but also by the school department. There was, quite a bit of things that we had to look at, that needs that we would love to have been able to fulfill on both sides, and it was just not going to happen this year. We were very lucky, like I said, with some one-time availability of funds, particularly with our health insurance, to reduce that expense. We're going forward. We're going to make some adjustments to try and prepare for next year, but we've got a ways to go.
And in doing so, one of the things, the big picture decisions that the town manager's office and the finance committee have to make is how much money are we going to allocate towards the operating budget, and how much are we going to put into capital investments? Like any homeowners, are we going to fix the roof this year, or are we going to buy a car, or are we going to pay for whatever? The town has to do that also. So that's Article 6 is the funding of the capital plan, which is always in flux because you're waiting for the state money to come in to find out how much money you have really available to spend. So this is, again, a routine article, and it's shown there on your screen. You can see the top starts with the police department. We pretty much have a routine of buying at least 2 new police cruisers every year because unlike the family car that gets parked in the driveway at night, these cruisers are out 24 hours a day on different shifts, and we really kind of beat them up and put a lot of mileage on them. So this has been a routine purchase and investment by the town. The Holbrook dispatch is a cost savings measure where you, and feel free to speak for me whenever. Holbrook dispatch is actually the regional dispatch center that helps Abington and other surrounding towns. So that's our contribution towards those costs. You can see the DPW, the purchase of some needed equipment. Now, I do know, because I'm privy to certain insider information, there will be an amendment on this article. The road improvement projects, you can see there is number B3 listed at $450,000. There'll be, the Finance Committee is going to be asked to make a motion to reduce that by $150,000 to drop it down to $300,000. Why is that?
It's just, although we do have availability of the free cash, we don't necessarily want to spend it all. And I do believe that we'll have a fall town meeting this year. And I think if we hold off on spending it all, we don't have any surprises coming up, because there could be adjustments to state aid, there could be adjustments to Chapter 70 funding, which goes for the schools. Those numbers could actually be reduced. The only budget we've seen on that is the governor's budget. There's still the Senate and the House have to get together, and then they have to finalize. We won't know that till July. So we don't want to spend all of our free cash, and this is just one place that this is really a new thing that, each year that I've been here, we've either borrowed or try to use ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act money, to go into the roadways and to infrastructure. So we want to continue to add stuff, and add funding for that, but I think we have to be just conservative about it right now.
So some kind of conservative fiscal management, and
Correct.
kind of keep some money in the bank in case there's a surprise, a little reserve account.
Yes.
So if we continue down on the capital plan, you have some other items that are on the water, from the water department, and those are actually paid for by the water department through the water fees that they collect every quarter from each of the businesses and towns in the businesses and families in the town of Abington. And if you go to the continue on the capital plan, just scrolling down to the next page, which is page 3 of your warrant, you'll see some additional water department investments, updated equipment, a lot of things that they do every year, again, to keep things kind of as fresh and up to date as possible. You see the sewer department's going to do some work on a pump station on Walnut Street. The fire department is going to replace an older command vehicle. It's one of the SUVs there, and their contribution towards Holbrook Dispatch. School department laptops and textbooks. Talk a little bit about the laptop program.
So yeah, the laptops, the school department every year buys $200,000+ worth of laptops. I believe they give them out at
Fifth grade
fifth
and
grade,
ninth grade or
and
whatever.
that
Yeah.
they hold on to them for 4 or 5 years, and then when they get into the high school, or the middle school, they get a new laptop.
Yeah.
And then the ones that are still good get turned back and used again. The ones that don't will get refurbished or recycled.
Yeah, so it's a way to keep the technology up to date. They don't buy laptops for every single kid in school every year. They basically get the newer ones go to the high school kids. The high school kids, older ones get passed down to the middle school. They keep kind of the cycle flowing, which is, again, trying to be some good fiscal management on their part. Strawberry Valley Golf Committee has a couple of great investments in the town-owned Strawberry Valley Golf Course, new golf carts, the well and pump house project. I understand they put in a new well last year, so they're going to be able to do more irrigation on the course. It's been a very popular, a lot of great improvements up there, which has increased the popularity of the course and the revenue stream from the course, which is great. So they're reinvesting this revenue with some equipment and clubhouse renovations. So the total of the capital plan as printed is $3,482,240. But as I mentioned, you'll likely hear a motion that will amend that down by the $150,000. So the total will be $3,332,240. And all of that, the payments for those items are all already basically budgeted for from water revenue, sewer revenue, golf revenue, and free cash. So those things, with your vote, will be able to be purchased and invested in the coming year. So then we move on to Article 7, which is the purchase and equipping of a new fire engine for the Abington Fire Department. This is going to require a 2/3 vote because it's a $900,000 purchase, and because these fire engines are going to be obviously held for more than 2 or 3 years, the money will be borrowed. So in the town budget, we have basically line items that pay for these outstanding loans, we'll call it, and this would be one of them. The need for the fire engine to buy it now, I was listening to the fire chief, but I'll ask you, it's not something that if we approve this, the fire engine will be here in 3 months.
No, unfortunately, and actually it's good that we're aware of this, and it's good that the chief is being proactive. These fire engines are now currently anywhere between 24 and 48 months out. So we need to get that order in now. I think it was probably 4 years ago when town meeting authorized some monies. I want to say it was in the $60,000 plus range to refurbish most of the 3 of the engines. Mm-hmm. And they did it, and they did a great job. Those engines are in great shape because of that, but still, the fleet's aging, and one of them's going to have to be replaced. And to get this authorization now, we can at least order it so that we know that we will have it when we need it.
And I have heard, I mean, whether it's an ambulance, a ladder truck, or an engine, we've heard it from Abington's past practice and other towns nearby where it's been taking at least 2 years to get the vehicle, if not 3, 4, sometimes even 5 years. So
we haven't gotten the ambulance yet.
Yeah.
We authorized in previous town meeting. So
right. So this would be a 2/3 vote to authorize us to place the order. Can't place the order until the funding has been approved, and then when the fire engine is delivered in a few years, we would basically surplus the oldest engine, whichever engine they're going to replace, and then this money would become available to pay over time. Article 8, and again, that's a 2/3 vote because it is a bonding or a borrowing article. Article 8 is the new town fuel island at the DPW facility. Currently, there's 2 fuel pumps, a fuel island at the DPW facility on Central Street, which services all of the town vehicles, not just the DPW, but the police, the fire department, the school department, all of the town vehicles. That's where they get their gas, so the town can kind of manage that gasoline budget also. But the insurance company has given us a little bit of somewhat of an ultimatum.
Yeah, and this isn't unusual.
No.
Maya is one of the largest, municipal insurance companies out there, and And yeah, this has been, we've had underground tanks for 30 plus years, I believe, and they're not in danger, they're not leaking. However, it's not the preferable way to store the fuel.
Yeah, it's a risk.
Yeah, it's a risk, and they want it moved. And especially, it doesn't help matter that it's across the street from Island Grove Pond.
Right.
So I think it's actually, it's a good idea to get this done. It'll, we'll be in trouble with the insurance company if we don't get it done. But I think it's probably what's best for the environment anyways.
In the interest of full disclosure, I'm on the DPW and Fire Station Building Committee. And so when this issue came up, we kind of needed to know, well, where's the fuel island, the new one, going to be put? Because that's going to have to be kind of worked into the site plan for the new fire and DPW. So we're interested in hoping that this also gets approved so that this can be taken care of and can be coordinated with the future DPW fire station building. So that is Article 8, and again, it'll require a 2/3 vote to kind of get those tanks out of the ground, and they'll have a new fuel island for the town to service all the town vehicles. Article 9 is the community preservation budget. We have a community preservation committee in town. The Community Preservation Act allows towns to add a CPA, Community Preservation Act fee, that's collected each year. Abington collects 1.5%, I believe it is. So it's typically about a $30 or $40, $50 fee that goes into this segregated account. And under the terms of the state law, they can only use this money for recreational purposes and open space, for historical purposes, and for affordable housing purposes. And so the CPC, this Community Preservation Committee, must review any applications for the use to see if it qualifies for any of those baskets, where the money can be spent, and then they take a vote to decide what they would propose that be spent out of their annual budget, and they also usually put money in reserves just for any sort of project that might come up later that might need additional funding or more funding. So they have done a great job. This is something that everyone kind of looks forward to every year. Reinvestments in our playgrounds, our recreational areas, setting money aside for future things like in the affordable housing side of it all, and then there's some historical preservation, which might not otherwise have the funding to do these items. And it's become a very popular statute in a lot of cities and towns around here. Anything to say about this?
No, I would recommend anybody who's interested probably watch the Finance Committee meeting where there was a presentation.
Yeah.
They did an extremely good job. It's, again, it's a great, we've been able to get a lot of great projects done and accomplished because of this money. Mm-hmm. And as you can see, it's stuff going right into the neighborhoods, like the Green Street Playground, the Island Grove Playground, Beaver Brook Playground, Dyer Memorial. There's just all sorts of great things, the Housing Trust and South Shore Habitat. So these are great programs that we want to absolutely support.
And again, in the interest of full disclosure, I was one of the proponents for the Memorial Field Complex updates, which is listed in this chart also. The lights at Memorial Field, the field lights, were installed in 1990. Those were all donated by residents and businesses. We got money together through the Greenway Boosters and put in the field lights. And over the last 10, 15 years, the town as a whole has been going around to the different playing fields and schools and trying to upgrade all the facilities. Obviously, we have the brand new turf fields that our soccer and lacrosse use at the new middle high school. We have the brand new basketball courts inside the new middle high school. We have the brand new tennis courts next to the high school. We have the running track that actually we put in 2004 with all donated funds, about $2 million worth of donated funds, and a new soccer field in that area. And later, about 15 years later, we spent $240,000 of CPA funds to replace the rubber to keep that track fresh for our track and field teams and for the many people who walk that track or run that track. And most recently, we renovated the infield of the varsity baseball field using American Rescue Plan funds. Yep. And we just completed rehab of the girls' softball field, where now they have a new backstop, new bleachers, new dugouts, and a new scoreboard, again with American Rescue funds and some community preservation funds. That was just completed. And so Memorial Field is kind of like the last one to get addressed. And these lights are now 34 years old, and we're having a desperate time trying to find replacement parts. And we've been told you've got about 2 or 3 years and they're going to go off. So part of this project is to replace the lights with LED lights that are basically identical or similar to the ones up at the high school and any other school that's been built in the last 10 or 15 years. And also to do some rehabilitation to what was known as the Dust Bowl area down at Memorial Field, which is basically an unusable area in the northeast quadrant because it's just in poor shape. So part of this is to move the JV baseball field out in that area and then make an expanded lawn area. So we'll gain about 2 to 3 acres of irrigated grass, Memorial Field, for all the different users who want to be down there adjacent to the playground. I know youth football uses it a lot. Abington celebrates. I was talking to them the other day. They need the lights if we want to have fireworks, so we can't have people down there. So what the CPA did, we had estimated the total cost of the new lights and the field work would be somewhere up to $2 million total. The CPA decided instead of borrowing the whole $2 million, in Article 9, there's $300,000 going towards that project, and then in Article 10 is 1.7 to borrow it over time, since these would be long-term capital investments. So Article 9, the chart that we just went over, is a majority vote to authorize the expense for all of those different improvements around town. Article 10 is a community preservation borrowing for Memorial Field improvements. It's to authorize to borrow up to $1.7 million. We're actually hoping it might be a little less, but we're being conservative with our estimates. And the treasurer would obviously pick whatever the best rate and the best term would be at the time the borrowing was done. It's paid for out of the community preservation revenues, not out of your tax dollars, but it does need a 2/3 vote because any type of town borrowing needs 2/3 vote. So that would be Article 10. I think I summarized that.
Yeah, and again, it's important to note it won't have any direct effect on the operating budget or any change in your taxes. This is all out of the CPA funds, and I can't think of a better place to put them.
Yeah, the only minor effect is a positive effect where the cost to run the field lights will be significantly lower. They estimate at least 25% less using the LED lights, if not 50% less. So that electric bill will be a little bit reduced. Articles 11, 12, and 13 are articles that appear every year on our town meeting, and we've put it together as what we call the consent agenda, that instead of taking the time to read each of the articles and getting separate votes, we basically put them together and the Finance Committee makes a motion to approve the 3 articles at the same time with one vote. Article 11 is to raise $16,657 to pay for Abington students for out-of-district vocational schools for their bus transportation. Article 12 is the annual $5,000 that is given to health imperative violence prevention and intervention programs that benefit Abington residents. And Article 13 is for the ARC of the South Shore, the ARC of the South Shore, which is $2,500 for services to provide to Abington residents with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we'll be asking for one vote to approve Article 11, 12, and 13 just to try to move our meeting forward. There's usually very little debate on those articles. Yeah. And just trying to, again, make your stay at our town meeting as efficient as possible. Article 14, 15, and 16 are zoning articles. You want to give a little summary of those? No.
Well, 14 and 15, these are dealing with the FEMA flood maps. This is really driven by FEMA. I don't think there are any huge changes, nothing that's going to be much of a surprise. It's really just housekeeping, and we're obliged to adopt them at town meeting.
Right. We have an existing zoning map that refers to what was then the existing FEMA maps. So now it's just being updated to reflect the new FEMA maps that are going to come in effect, I believe, this July 3rd, 2024. So the new Article 14 asks to amend the zoning map to refer to the new FEMA maps. And then Article 15 updates the Abington zoning bylaw that replaces the language to refer to the new FEMA information. So as Scott said, it's pretty much housekeeping to get up to date and to conform with all the FEMA requirements. Those will require 2/3 votes because any zoning amendment, almost every zoning amendment requires a 2/3 vote. So Article 14 and 15 will be 2/3 votes. Article 16 is a unique article that doesn't require a 2/3 vote because of new state law. This will require a majority vote, and this is the well-known MBTA zoning that you've been hearing about. It's called the enactment of multifamily overlay district. Our town planner and our town planning board have been working very diligently. The town hired a professional consultant to help make sure that this was drafted in a way that it conforms to the new statute. We checked off all the boxes, all the requirements, and this will require your approval at town meeting. Scott, it's something that Abington kind of is ahead of the game here again.
Yeah, and it's important that we are. We want to get it right. They spent a lot of time on this. We have one of the better consultants in the Commonwealth working on it with us. And I would urge anyone, again, if you're interested, if you watch, I know there's been several, I think you've done a show with the planner, with Liz Shea, and with our consultant, Judy Barrett of Barrett Group, on this particular article. I would encourage you to watch that. And I also would encourage you to watch the DPW when they were in front of the Finance Committee, because what you'll hear over and over is them talking about grants that they received and the amount of work that they've done, and it was over $12 million in grant and work that was done last year. Grants that would be taken away should we not adopt this zoning. This is actually in an area where, for the most part, the zoning, this is an allowable use as it is. The big difference here is it's allowable currently with special permit.
Right.
And this would just say, look, you've got to follow all these rules, which are pretty much the same rules you would have to follow anyways. And then if you do follow all these rules, you don't need a special permit. You still would have to go in front of the planning board. You would still have stormwater regulations to deal with. You still have to go in front of the Conservation Commission.
The water board.
The water board, yeah. It's still, we're not giving up any of the control over things like that.
Yeah, when it first came out, it really scared a lot of communities because the formula that the state requires says you have to design it so it allows for X amount of units. And I think Abington's number was somewhere in the 1,200 units or whatever it was. But it doesn't mean you have to permit the 1,200 units. And
we're not required to have them built. We just have to have the ability, if somebody was so interested, to be able to build these things. Right,
and there is a map that's attached to the warrant article that shows you the specific area where this applies, the overlay district, and it's an area that abuts the current MBTA commuter rail station that's, as you know, is off of Summer Street and Center Ave, between Summer and Center Avenue. That is the only area that this applies to. And as Scott was just alluding to, the bulk of that area, that overlay district, has already been developed with some multifamily housing under the current zoning bylaws. You can see part of the map right there that shows where it is. It's kind of just in that segregated area. And some of the land is, burdened by wetlands, so it's going to further restrict it. But Abington already had what they call the transit-oriented development zoning district and the R20 zoning district, which allowed multifamily by special permit. Now essentially the state says, well, you just got to take away the special permit, but everything else kind of stays in place. One thing I thought was important when I read this is that it also continues to limit construction to no more than 3 stories in height, which I think originally a lot of us thought, oh boy, someone's going to come in here and build 10-story housing, and that's not allowed under this bylaw. But there's a really good video, if you'd like to watch, if you go to the town website at abingtonma.gov and go to the planning board page, and then there'll be some information about the MBTA zoning. And if you click on the conversations about MBTA zoning, it's about an hour long video where they go through all of the different details. I moderated the discussion, but it was our town planner, our consultant, and a member of our planning board. And I think there's a lot of great information there that you can absorb before we get to town meeting. Obviously, there will be questions about this. I think they're pretty well prepared to answer it. But it is something that the town has to make a decision on, and it's a majority vote to move forward.
Yes, and again, like we said, not to throw any sort of scare tactics into it, but the state is the state. This is a state mandate. State is saying you shall do this. They're not really giving us what they're giving us is the option of where we want to do it, and having the control of designing this regulations to fit our needs. Should we not adopt this for some crazy reason, we would, again, likely lose any future, matter of fact, I can guarantee we would lose any future grant opportunities. And there's always the possibility there'll be a clawback of existing grants that we haven't quite exercised yet, which would be, obviously not very good for us.
And the Finance Committee has voted to recommend approval of this article. The Planning Board obviously has voted to recommend approval, and the Board of Selectmen have also endorsed this article. And that'll be Article 16, and again, there's more information on the town website. Moving on to Article 17 of our 29 articles. Article 17 is to surplus disposal of land at what's listed as 0 Linwood Street. It's a small parcel of 2.78 acres. And what's the purpose of this article?
So I don't know if you want to bring up that.
Yeah, if we can scroll down to the map, and we'll show you exactly where that's located. But
so this was, it's adjacent to a larger parcel that had already been conveyed at previous town meetings, or was given into the custody of the Board of Selectmen to dispose of them. This is just a piece that's adjacent to it, a 2.78 acre piece. What the plan here would be to take both pieces together in their entirety and put it out to bid for a developer to come in, purchase it, and with a development agreement create some mixed income housing. So there would be obviously some affordable housing, some moderate rate housing, and some what I would refer to as housing that would be geared towards senior living. So one floor, smaller units. And the idea of the concept like this is it creates entry-level housing for young folks or people who want to move into the community, creates affordable housing, which we have a great need for. It also creates housing for seniors that may want to downsize and stay in the town and just have something that's sort of first floor living and a little bit easier.
And to be clear, there are no plans designed for this property.
At this point, nothing at all.
So the number of units is unknown, because there are wetlands on this property.
Yep.
But this was land, if we could put that back on the screen for a second, this land was actually originally bought by the town many years ago and put under the custody of control of the school department for a potential school site, which never came to fruition because of the shape of land. You can see that other vacant town land is the land that Scott mentioned that the selectmen already kind of have control over. And as you scroll down towards Linwood Street, the yellow parcel is the parcel that we're dealing with in Article 17, which basically it kind of goes together with it.
Yeah, it goes together. It is not likely that, it would be extremely unlikely that portion of it would have any sort of development on it. But by adding it to the larger parcel, it brings it all into the tax rolls. And it gives if we do go forward with the development plan, it does give the developer area and some more upland to help him with whatever, or him or her with whatever plan that we come forward with.
So this article, if approved, would give the control of that property to the selectmen, and would also authorize the selectmen, if they so voted, to eventually sell it to a private developer or some sort of joint venture of a government and private entity. And whatever would be proposed, the neighbors would have to be notified. To be planning board hearings and conservation hearings. Nothing planned in the immediate future, but this just puts it on the table so it could happen to pursue our affordable housing needs.
Yeah, and what would likely happen with it is first a conceptual. We would, with a consultant, put together a conceptual plan. The Affordable Housing Trust will probably shepherd this project forward.
Which is a town committee. Yep.
Which is a town committee, correct. And ultimately it'll take approval by the selectmen before it goes forward. Then if you did go forward and a developer was interested in the project, which would have very strict conditions on what could be done there.
Sure.
Then that developer would also have to have planning board hearings and or zoning board hearings. So it's a long multi-step process that before and even before it goes out from the selectmen, there will be opportunity for neighbors and the community to weigh in on it.
So this, because we're just transferring custody and control, is the phrase, requires a 2/3 vote from town meeting. That's Article 17, and again, that map is available on the town website attached to the warrant, but it's also going to be printed for you at town meeting. We'll be handing out paper copies of the warrant there too. Articles 18 and 19 were proposed by the Board of Health. Article 18 is a proposed ban on nip bottles, which are the small bottles you buy at a liquor store. I've heard some great discussion on this articles on both sides of it. This would create a new general bylaw in Abington that the sale of alcoholic beverages in containers less than or equal to 100 milliliters is prohibited within the town of Abington, to be effective as of January 1, 2025. This would be a majority vote whether to approve it or not approve it. No real, I guess, tax or income ramifications to the town, but we've heard great arguments or points brought up that it might hurt some businesses, liquor businesses. Other people think it's great because it might control some of the litter. Don't know where this is going to go. It's up to the voters to make a decision. Any thoughts from you, Scott?
None whatsoever.
Okay.
It's probably important to note that I think you did say that the Finance Committee defers to the Board of Health, and I believe the Board of Selectmen last night voted to
Pass over it.
Yeah.
Yes. They do not support, the Board of Health does support this, the Board of Selectmen does not support this, but again, that's what town meeting is all about. It's the purest form of democracy, our New England open town meeting, so we'll be asked to vote on that. I don't anticipate a long debate on this because you're for it or against it, and once it gets repetitive, I'll try to stop the debate and ask people to vote. But this is your opportunity to come and be heard and to cast your vote, and the best way to be heard is to vote. Article 19 regards stable licenses. As it was explained to me, there's a statute in Massachusetts that not only are Board of Healths required to inspect stables and barns and different types of, forget restaurants, animal. They have all sorts of things they're required to inspect. But the statute specifically says to set an inspection fee for stables, which is horse stables. The fee can't be more than $40 and it has to be approved at town meeting. So that's the purpose of this article, was to establish the fee at $40. There's been some consternation about this article. There aren't that many stables in Abington, but some people think that, why are we going to charge $40, or why do we need to do this? The Board of Health says the statute tells us we're supposed to do this, so they're putting it out in front of the voters. The Finance Committee has voted to pass over this article. The selectmen, I believe, also recommended the same thing, but it's still up to the voters to whether they want to approve this so they can set a fee. The inspections will still occur, I understand.
Yes.
They're required by law. But to set the fee, you have to put it in front of town meeting, and that's the purpose of the article. The Board of Health are just following the suggestions or the requirements of the state statute, as I understand.
Yeah, and it appears that there are probably only
Less than 10.
certainly less than 10, maybe less than 5.
Yeah. Which, we all vote as a community,
Yep.
so if we think this is a good idea, bad idea, or if $40, it can be no more than $40. So we'll have that debate and that discussion about stable licenses on Article 19. Again, it's a general bylaw, so it's 50 majority rules, whether we approve or disapprove. The next couple of articles are kind of some fiscal efficiency articles, I like to describe them. Some things that we've put into the warrant, and I think some of these articles we may see be recurring in the next couple of years. But we're trying to make things a little bit more efficient where possible, both for budgeting and how we formulate our budget, and also to take advantage of any sort of, in this case, a tax abatement program. So we'll go through these kind of quickly. Article 20 is basically an update to the senior citizen and veteran tax work-off abatement programs, which already are in place in the town of Abington. But why don't you just speak a little bit about these?
Well, one thing, and one, probably really good part about this is we'll allow a person to perform the volunteer duty for someone who may be a senior or a veteran, who's not able to perform the duty. And so that, I could go out and do some volunteer work, and somebody else could benefit from that in their tax abatement. And then this will also allow and I think there may be an amendment on this
Potentially, yeah.
potentially, but basically it just raises the threshold for the amount in any given year that person can do.
Yeah, currently I went down this wormhole too and tried to research the statutes. Currently, the senior citizen work-off abatement program limits you to $1,500 of a tax reduction for the work that you do, and same thing with the veterans, up to $1,500. Recent amendments have allowed this new language that says you can have someone do the work for you if you're disabled and unable to do it, which is a great idea. So we wanted to adopt that language. But there's also been a recent amendment to the senior citizen abatement that increased the $1,500 threshold to $2,000. So we're looking at adopting that also for the benefit of our senior citizens. And in talking to the veterans agent, there's also some additional language in there that says you can either go by the $1,500 threshold or you can go by 125 volunteer hours at minimum wage. So you might see a motion that includes that in there to just basically take advantage of all these new updates to the state law so that Abington can implement them and offer them to our veterans and to our senior citizens. So again, trying to keep up to date and make sure that we kind of allow them to take advantage of whatever abatements are out there. And this would be on top, as I understand, of any other exemption or abatement that's available to a senior citizen or a disabled person in Abington.
And it's probably important to know too that as great of a program as this is, it's not free money. We do get services, and some of these services you'll see, whether it's people that are volunteering and working down at the compost site to make sure that it's open and people can get in. They do work down at town hall and help with different projects there, and they assist our veterans officer daily. We have people in there helping out and helping other veterans get into the program. So, or not into this program, but into the veterans program. So,
and I think now the ability to allow a representative to do the work for you, it could be a family member or a friend, for someone who's physically unable. I think that's just a kind of something that they kind of overlooked when they enacted the statute. Now they're trying to correct that so that all senior citizens, all veterans can take advantage of this. So we may have some younger people doing the work, which might allow us to do other things that the town could benefit from. Moving on to Article, that's again a majority vote to accept that. Article 21, it's called Accrued Liabilities and Compensated Absences Fund. What's that all about?
So 21 and 22, these are both part of our recently updated and adopted financial policies. And, every year we have folks that, I think you see articles that somebody's retired or leaving and we have to use free cash or whatever to pay that person out. But these are things that we know are going to happen. Generally, we have an idea every year, or however over a period of 5 years, what the average is of what somebody leaving and what it costs the town. So we should be accounting for that. And that's what this does. This just sets up a way that we can account for it, we can fund it. As you can see, that's right now what the recommendation is, and the finance director could probably explain better how he comes up with that number, but it's a specific number based on averages over the past 5 or 10 years or whatever. So again, these are just things that it's part of a good, solid financial plan, good, solid financial policy. The auditors appreciate it, and the bonding companies appreciate it, which go a long way.
So if we like Article 21, as you said, is about basically the sick leave buyback or the unused vacation time. Article 22 is unemployment reserve fund for similar budgeting. So we know that people are going to be retiring. We know we're going to have sick leave buyback, so why not budget for it?
Exactly.
So we're setting that money aside instead of trying to find it every time someone retires. And that will likely be an annual thing, and we'll adjust the amount based on projections on what retirements are expected. So that's Articles 21 and 22. Those would be majority votes. And a similar one, another cleanup article, Article 23, closing fund deficits. These are some small deficits that total less than $3,700. But it's something the finance director put out there so we can kind of zero out those 5 small funds. They're listed there in your warrant. It's a majority vote. It's housekeeping.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's just housekeeping. We like to clean things up and close these things out.
And you had mentioned the benefit of all the grant money. Abington has really done a lot to try to chase down and take advantage of grants in the last 5-6 years, and it's been very beneficial to us. And Article 24 kind of even enhances our ability. It's called support of grant funding. Why don't you tell us about that?
So from time to time, and it happens almost every year, an opportunity will come up that it's some sort of a grant that needs either a financial match or an in-kind match, where we would maybe have to hire a consultant to work with us or provide something. It's usually 5%, 10%, sometimes 25% of whatever that grant opportunity is. A lot of times we try to have articles for it at town meeting, but if it comes up at a certain period of the year, and it's just after town meeting, or we're not planning to have a special town meeting, we're not always able to avail ourselves of that grant. So this would just give us, and I believe the sum was going to be $50,000.
Right.
It would give us that ability to be a little more nimble and move on those things.
Yeah, try to get to the front of the line against other
Yeah,
towns.
exactly. And again, it's free cash. If we don't use it, it'll roll over next year. It'll still be there, or we may ask to replenish it, or roll into free cash again.
So again, it just kind of opens the door. If they say, hey, you can do this, but you need $10,000 now, we'll have an ability to do that.
Right.
Okay, Article 20, that's a majority vote to set up that account. Article 25 is the revocation of the opioid settlement stabilization fund, and this is due to an update in the state law.
Yeah, and I think the update was probably right after we adopted this.
Yeah.
It was shortly after the town meeting. But yeah, basically we set up this fund because we've received probably over $100,000 at this point, maybe closer to $180,000 plus in the opioid settlement. And
This was a lawsuit.
This was a lawsuit
Nationwide.
Yep.
And I think it was Pfizer, I believe, is.
Well, there was many companies. It was
Okay.
Pfizer. I think CVS has paid into it. Walmart ended up paying into it. So there were a lot of large organizations that had to pay into this
And this is going to be monies paid to cities and towns for several years.
for 20 plus years.
Really?
Will be receiving payments, and they will decrease over time. Some of the settlements were the full settlement at once. Some of them they're just going to pay over time. But the idea of this is we set up the opioid settlement committee. So we do have a committee that's set up, and there's only specific ways that we can spend this. It's very cut and dry. That it has to go towards something related to opioid addiction, helping with opioid addiction, helping people who have been affected by it. And the committee's formed to help spend that money. What they didn't do when this money started coming in is they never set up a way for us to spend it.
The state never did.
The state never did. So that's why we said, all right, well, let's set up a stabilization fund so we can put it somewhere.
Segregate that money. Yep.
Right. And now they did say after town meeting, they said, you know what? You can set up a special revenue fund. You don't have to go to town meeting, and it'll be easier for you to spend it. So this is just saying, is just acknowledging that now we'll use the special revenue fund, and it just makes it a little quicker and easier for the committee to deal with these
So
things.
the committee still exists, the money still comes, it's just a bookkeeping thing where we're canceling the stabilization fund, and now it'll be in a revenue fund that's going to be easier for the town to account for.
And the rules are still there as far as how we spend it, and they're still, audited on that and made sure that we have to do it properly.
Just a reminder quick, as we get to the end of it, April 1st is the town meeting. Monday, April 1st, 7 o'clock we start. Please arrive 15 to 20 minutes early so you can check in and grab your seat, and we'll try to get started and get through this as quickly as possible. We move on to Article 26, the Town Charter Amendments. According to our Town Charter, which was set up almost 20 years ago now, every 10 years we're required to set up a charter review committee. And that charter review committee reviews the current charter and just sees if there's anything that needs to be updated or amended, tweaked, improved. And I got to tell you that this charter review committee has done yeoman's work for almost 2 years, meeting with all the different types of departments that were affected, coming up with language, working with town council. And they have attached to the back of the warrant are their suggested amendments to the charter. Most of them are kind of clarity, better language, changing Board of Selectmen to Select Board to be more unisex and respect for our women and the men in the town. Some of the things clarify what happens if there's a vacancy, how do you fill a vacancy. It's all in the back of the warrant, and they've done a lot of work You can watch their meetings on Abington Cam. If you read through it, I would urge you and encourage you to read through their report, and they have the existing language and the proposed language, and it tells you why, what the intent is. We'll go through these as quickly as possible. Not sure if any one of them are hot button issues, but I think they've done a great job.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it was quite a bit. They've worked hard with town council. They've done a great job explaining this. Again, I would encourage anybody to watch their presentation to the finance committee. You know, you can get a little bit better of an idea before town meeting what the changes are all about. It's obviously on our website.
Yep.
And anybody can get in there. There's quite a few of them.
I think there's about 15 or 16 sections that are being updated. So again, I urge you to review it. It's attached to the warrant, and it's on the town website. And it's pretty thorough.
Yeah, I think they did a great job. I don't think there's anything in there that is that anybody will find offensive or earth-shattering or surprising. Yeah. I think it was a lot of just trying to make things a little better, clearer.
As the chairman of the Charter Review Committee, Rick Collins, said, the charter is like the constitution of Abington town government. So it's something that's a living document. We try to update it to work with our existing government and the needs of our town. That'll be a 2/3 requirement to update or amend the charter. Again, I encourage you to read over it to prepare for the town meeting. Article 27 is the Griffin's Dairy Farm well project, where they asked for $50,000 to, I think it's to finish the irrigation well project. The Finance Committee has motioned to pass over this, and they're suggesting, not that they don't support the project, but they thought that instead of taking the money from town tax revenues or free cash, that they should continue to utilize CPA money, which I understand the Griffin's Dairy Committee has used a lot of CPA money to do all the great improvements they've done at the Griffin's Dairy open space, which you haven't been there yet. It's off of Plymouth Street. It's a beautiful place to take a walk, and the community gardens are up there. The selectmen, I believe, voted to support this article, that they would suggest that we just approve the $50,000, which would come out of free cash. Yep. Again, it's a decision for the voters what to do there. Article 28, establish a residential waste pickup and hauling enterprise fund. Tell us a little bit about that one, Scott.
You don't want me to talk about dairies?
You can talk about the dairy if you'd like to. I thought I kind of summed it up quickly.
Well, I would just add to Griffin's, though, is the project has already begun, and it is as you said, the open space there is a great amenity to the town, and I do encourage people to take advantage of it. They have community gardens there, and they've been using town water to water those gardens. There's quite a few and quite a big area, and anybody who wants to, I think, has the ability to go there and have a little farm plot. We started this project. There was an old well there for years, and we've gotten there's great water in there, and has a great amount of pressure. So it would be nice to finish this sooner than later. Yeah. We do have the available free cash for it. I think that it's just it would be just a project. Be nice to get off the board and get it done.
So that's Article 27, $50,000 for the Griffin's Dairy Farm well project.
And then 28.
Now we'll move to 28. Establish residential waste pickup and hauling enterprise fund. This establishes a fund, but it doesn't implement any new trash policies, is what I understand.
At this point, it doesn't. But as I stated when we started, our operating budget has there's some real big drivers to it that are a strain on the budget. And one of the largest ones is, and I've been saying it since I got here, has been the waste pickup and hauling.
Which is true in every town now.
It is. It is. When I was on the Board of Selectmen in Whitman, we had to deal with it then, and other towns have dealt with it. Everybody, there's a lot of different ways to deal with it. Right now, I want to establish this fund, and then in the future, what we would likely do is go to a fee-based system. Nothing else would change. You would still have your typical curbside as you see it today. You would have your barrels as you see today. The only difference is it won't be in the budget. You'll just receive a separate fee for it. What this does allow is for fluctuations in that market. It allows us to set a fee every year based on previous years and what our expectations are. It's very driven by tipping fees at the sites where we bring them. It's very driven and escalates with gas prices, labor prices. So it's very difficult for us to control it within the budget. It's a million, over $1.5 million. It's just it's a very big drain, and it's grown yearly. And every year it grows, it just takes away from other services and other parts of the budget. It takes away from the schools, it takes away from DPW, it takes away from police, fire, you name it. It's a drain. This would give us better control of it. You know, back in the day when recycling was a commodity, you know, it was a lot easier to control these things. But right now, it is all very expensive to get rid of. And so what this does, again, it just sets up the fund. It gives us the ability to move forward with the next step. Before we move forward with the next step, there'll be a plan that we'll work out with the Finance Committee and with the Board of Selectmen on how it'll go forward. Again,
And the Board of Health.
And the Board of Health. Again, you won't see, the average homeowner or any homeowner is not going to see a difference as far as same barrel, same company, same schedule, same pickup. What you will see instead of you'll on an annual basis receive the bill that's associated with it. Right now it's probably about $200, I think, what we estimated it per household. There'd be an abatement program or a reduction for seniors. We'd look into that, and it'd be an opt-out program. If you're not interested in doing it, if you feel as though you can find a better way to deal with your household waste and a cheaper way, properly, you're welcome to do so. So again, there'll be more on it. What this is just sort of the first step in moving that forward. And again, this will also, you know, like I said, we have to start making decisions on how we're going to make this budget work for everybody and make sure that we can continue to provide all the services. And I think this would be one big step towards doing that.
So this is another example where you're basically creating a line item in the budget that we may be utilizing in the future. This does not change the trash pickup policies or anything at this point in time. That's going to be a later discussion that I'm sure we'll have a lot of people discussing it. But this just sets up the line item so the town has the flexibility to make some decisions.
Exactly.
Okay. And that's just a majority vote to set up this line item. The final article, Article 29, is the St. Patrick's Day Parade overtime and details. It's requesting $10,000 to be available to pay for the police, fire, and DPW overtime or detail costs for next year's St. Patrick's Day Parade in 2025. We just had a very successful one in 2024.
It's amazing.
Great crowd with great weather. This is the town contributing to this parade. It started off as a small parade, and they raised money on their own to do it. As it became larger, especially when it's on weekends and there's more people, then we do need a lot more assistance from our public safety departments. And this is the town contributing so we can keep this tradition alive. I think it's been 45 years and running.
Wow.
And we want to thank Jack Bailey and all of his parade committee, but the town has to decide whether they want to allocate $10,000 by taking a vote on Article 29.
Yeah, and since I've been here, I believe town meeting prior to my arrival had allocated some money for it. Then we obviously didn't have a parade because of the COVID year. We
had a parade. It was a short one that was on video to prove it kept going.
I didn't close the roads.
Yes, to your point, there was no fully
no
sanctioned
overtime.
detailed parade. Right.
We carried that money over, and then the year that we did close the roads again,
yes,
we used that money. Subsequent years, we've actually used some of the ARPA funds to help offset the costs, but those funds are gone now. So it's a great day. I think the town loves it. Everybody who comes out, it's amazing. I think I think we just have to put it to the town on whether they want to continue the tradition or not.
That'll be Article 29, and that'll be the way that we're going to end our night at town meeting. Again, Scott, I want to thank you for taking the time to help bring this information to the voters at home. If you are a registered voter, you're welcome and urged to attend town meeting on April 1st. Again, please try to arrive there early so you can check in on time. There's usually a little bit of line as people check in with your name and address. There's plenty of seating. If you are not a registered voter or if you are not a resident of Abington, you are allowed to attend, but you have to sit in a special designated area because you're not allowed to vote, and unfortunately not allowed to speak at town meeting unless there's a vote from town meeting to allow you to do so. That does not include non-resident department heads. For example, the superintendent of schools sits with his school committee and is allowed to talk during town meeting because that's his job, and other town department heads. Want to also remind you, the Abington Celebrates Committee wanted me to tell you that the Abington, April 13th is the town-wide yard sale, where headquarters will be at North School and at the Beaverbrook School. It's going to be quite an event. And I want to thank again the members of the Abington Finance Committee for all the work that they do. We'll recite their names and introduce them again at town meeting. We do have one vacancy in our Finance Committee, so if you're interested in joining the Finance Committee, please let me know if you want to see me at town meeting, preferably at town meeting, because I'll be running around with my head cut off for the beginning of town meeting. And I will also say that town meeting will not be broadcast live on cable TV because we need people to be in the seats to get our quorum. It will be recorded by Abington Cam, and they will play it back several times after town meeting has been completed on Monday, April 1st. Any final thoughts, Scott?
No, we hope we get everybody there, as many as possible, as early as possible, so we can be as efficient as possible.
There's a little bit of something for everyone in here.
There is.
We do ask you to stay the entire meeting so we can continue to vote and get these things done. I will try to move the meeting along just as quickly as possible while also balancing it out to give people the right to ask questions, to hear opinions, and I always ask people to listen to other people's opinions because it may decide you may change your mind because you heard a different point of view, or it may confirm that your point of view is what you really believe in, and you will, I'm sure, vote what's best for you and your family. So, again, I want to thank everyone who's worked so hard to prepare for town meeting, and now it's up to you, the voters, to be there on April 1st and to cast your votes on each of these 29 articles so that the town of Abington can make all of the investments that are outlined in our warrant. Thanks for tuning in, and again, go to the town website, abingtonma.gov, and you can read through the warrant, you can read through the charter amendments, you can look at all of the budget line items, and be ready for April 1st. Thanks again.